this is a mic check. Let me know when you can hear me. I see Blanche. I see Pearline. I see Dot. I see Beverly. Is that better? Pearline is saying yes. Oh, hear you now, Dot. Okay, great. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Remember, things are always happening, but it depends on our response to those things. And that's not going to stop us anyway. So let me begin again. It's my first noonday since January 2023, and I'm so grateful to be here with you. I want to first say thank you so much. I've been getting great feedback about the impact of the daily inspiration, and in particular the writings for January, which flow through me this month. I'm the writer for this month, and so I'm grateful. And as we would always say, to God be the glory. You know, the intention set in the sharing of these words in the DI is that somebody somewhere can be inspired and uplifted. That's also the intention for every noonday, that we have an opportunity to remind ourselves not to be conformed to this world and the things that happen in the world, and things do happen, we know that, but to be transformed, as Romans 12:2 tells us, by the renewing of our minds. And so it's just an opportunity for you to hear something and be reminded of who you are and of the intention that God had for you and has for you even before you were born and before you were created. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for sharing this inspiration. I was saying earlier that usually at the start of the year, we are looking at the past year and what worked and what did not work, and setting new intentions for the year at some point in time. And I was saying one of two things could have happened up until this point, which is the 25th of the month. That one, we either would have started a new way of being or an improved way of being and been working through that, or we would have probably fallen back into an old pattern or the old ways from 2022 that became the norm. And so this is an opportunity also not to beat upon yourself for anything per se, but to be able to look and see where it is that you're at and how it is that we can go back and recommit to the things that we said we wanted to do in 2023. So it's not blame, but responsibility, our ability to respond to things that are happening. And maybe it is just a simple decision as calling somebody or looking back at your list and writing an email, or start doing one step towards whatever that thing is that you have or that you said you were going to do. Because remember, the year is only a new year if you have new attitudes, if you have new ways of thinking, if you have new ways of feeling, if you have new ways and new actions, new words and new reactions. And so the responsibility is always with us. So I'm so grateful again that you're here. I'm so grateful for the Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, who had this idea and was able to follow this idea, nurture this idea, learn more about the idea, and allow the idea to be birthed in her with the founding of the Universal Foundation for Better Living, which is the parent organization that produces the daily inspiration for better living. And that the idea could have taken on its own life. And one of the expressions of that life is the Universal Center of Truth for Better Living, from which we are broadcasting this noonday inspiration. It's also very interesting that the daily inspiration is available at ufbl.org. So we thank you for sharing it wherever. First of all, for investing in it by purchasing a copy. You're supporting the Universal Foundation for Better Living, but in sharing it, you're helping to uplift the world. Here in our local ministry, we know we're sold out of the DI, and so we're grateful for that. And I'm sure we're looking at opportunities to get more, as it's a bi-monthly publication, and February is still there with the writings from Nadine Newsom out of UC Truth. So thanks again for that. Thanks again for all of the support as we look at faith for the month of January, represented by the disciple Peter. We have been going through, since the 1st of January, just looking at how it is that we can take steps in this 2023 to live this happy, healthy, and prosperous life that we talk about every Sunday, every day in this New Thought organization. And you know, we don't subscribe to or believe in a God concept that beats you up and that judges you and that makes you feel like you're nothing, but we focus on and live true to the God that we are made in its image and likeness, and that promised us that the plans that are for us are for good and not for evil, and to give us a future with hope. And so we start from that premise, and because we begin from that premise, then our final product is different. So today we're talking about our God concept. And you know, all of us have at some point in time maybe become aware of what our God concept is. Maybe we got something growing up from our parents, from our family. Maybe like me, a lot of you grew up in church. I grew up in the Catholic Church. And so there was a particular kind of belief system that you grew up with. And one of the beautiful things about one of the founders of New Thought that we tend to study and work with and use his teachings and build on his teachings is the work of Charles Fillmore. And Charles Fillmore, like New Thought does, which is like New Thought does, Charles Fillmore does not disregard other beliefs and traditions. Even around the Bible, Charles Fillmore just found new ways of interpreting them. And so even the whole definition of New Thought, which is a variety of approaches to God, to life, to the world, and its seeming problems. And so we are not saying that whatever you grew up learning is bad or is wrong, or there's anything that's bad or wrong. We are not here to judge wrong or right in that way. We're just here to say, here is another approach. Here is another concept. Here's another idea of God. And see if that idea or that concept works for you. And if it works for you, then try it on. If it does not work for you, then it's fine. Keep what you have if what you have is working. But I know for me, growing up in the church I grew up in, what worked then. But when I was introduced to New Thought and I was able to start thinking and answering some of the questions that I've always had, it was intriguing. And so I continued to learn. I continued to go to classes. I continued to listen to the whisperings of my still small voice. And even now, I'm still learning and growing. So it's never, ever a destination, but an ongoing process of spiritual enlightenment. So I'm asking you today, what would you say is your God concept? And I know sometimes in this noonday, you're talking to people who would have different kinds of God concept. What is your God concept? And this is for you to be honest with yourself. Even if you tell me whatever you tell me, what is your God concept? What do you really and truly believe? Who do you really and truly believe God to be? And who do you really and truly believe God to be to you? Because if we think about it sometimes and are honest with ourselves, there are some people who are punishing themselves by virtue of their concept of God. And they believe that God is beating them up for something. They believe that God is punishing them for something they did or did not do. And so that is a God concept. There are some people who believe that by the sweat of your brow you shall eat bread. That is a God concept because it came out of the scriptures, a misinterpretation of the scriptures. There are some people who believe that this God is somewhere far away from them, in a place that they will perhaps die and one day go to. And that concept works for them. And so they're striving and they're waiting in some kind of way to go to that place. But there are others who believe that this God concept, this God idea is much bigger than what we have been taught or what we have heard. And so the extent to which we can experience health, the extent to which we can experience wealth, the extent to which we can experience happiness is dependent on our God concept. One of the things I found intriguing is that if you really look at, and remember now, I'm not speaking of church necessarily or denomination, but if you look at those persons who are sustainably successful, and I use sustainable because there are people who acquire wealth and are not able to sustain it. So I'm not looking at that category. I'm talking about those who are sustainably successful, and success is different for different persons. You tend to find that they are spiritual. Even if not religious, they are spiritual. They have some kind of connection to a presence, something that is higher and bigger than themselves. And so they recognize and realize that even if not consciously, that it didn't just happen, and they want to give back and they share, and they are huge believers, although some of them might never ever step into a physical church. That's because their God concept has been updated. In the same way, you're not wearing clothes that you wore when you were 2. You've had to update your wardrobe, right? You're not doing things that you were doing when you were 2. At least I hope you are not. I'm sure you don't have the phone that you had 10 years ago, because those have also been updated. And even with the phone that you have now, every now and then we get software updates, because as people grow, as the researchers look at technology and what can be done, they upgrade it with their understanding and awareness of what is possible to higher versions of the thing and higher versions of how it can be used. In the same way, each of us must look at what is our concept of this God, or whatever it is that we call it, and how we can grow in that concept of God, how we cannot remain limited to a God that is perhaps an archaic understanding based on what we knew then. When you were a child, when they had to explain some things to us, they had to explain it to us in a basic format. They couldn't be telling a 2-year-old child necessarily about Pythagoras' theorem, for example, in math, because at that age and stage of development, it would mean little. But as the child grew, you're able to share more at their level of understanding. In the same way, as you and I grow, we have to find ways to update our God concept. And that is where most people don't take the time to do. That is what church ought to be about. Ought to be bringing you back to the truth of who you are, and the truth of who God is, and the truth of your relationship to God. Because here at UC Truth, UFBL, in New Thought, there's a concept of God as being. Even the word God can be limited, because some people have associated the word God with a him, a man that is somewhere far away, that is coming back on a judgment day. And so even in that, there are limited concepts. And so we have to look at what are new concepts if we want to experience more health, more wealth, more happiness. That's what happened with our founder of UFBL, Dr. Johnny Coleman. Because after getting her a diagnosis, somebody called her on the phone to say, you have 6 months to live. And she was passing her coffee table, and the book fell off, and it says, God is my health, I can't be sick. It jerked somewhere in her mind, because how could you be telling me this when I just got a diagnosis? She then had to go and update her God concept. And then, having updated her God concept, she could have beaten that diagnosis and moved to live another 40 or whatever years that she lived. The same is true of our current president, Reverend Dr. Sheila. The same is true of many of us. We are introduced to this teaching, and something is said that sparks something that says, oh my, I never thought of it like that way. You know, so how is it and what is it that I can do to update my God concept, to update what I think and who and what I think God is? And once we have gotten to that place where we update our God concept, Once we have gone to the place where we update our God concept, we start to experience life differently. Right? We start to experience that differently. They're saying that they're not seeing me, so check on that and see what it is. They're not seeing me any at all. So let's go to what the reading says. As we continue our thing, let's go to what the reading says. It says, update your God concept. It says, update your God concept. And it starts by saying, we have heard that every desire we have is God tapping at the door of our thinking and feeling. This is true. Every desire is God tapping at the door of our thinking and feeling. This idea or concept called God, like we're sharing here now, we make connection with this concept through our imagination, through our thinking faculty. And so we are able to catch these ideas because God is, right? God is the substance, the essence of everything that exists and exists as an idea, and is not a concept that is outside of ourselves. So God is not limited to a man, and God is not limited to Jesus either. But again, remember, you would have heard or probably believe that because of your teachings and what you would have heard growing up. But it's now time for you to hear an updated version, an updated concept, and to see if that resonates true with you. The tapping at the door of your thinking is your desire. And it is God advising you that there is an update to your current human expression software that requires a download into your awareness for improved performance in your thinking, feeling, words, actions, and reactions. Let me break that down. A desire comes to you. There's something that comes to you that you want to experience more of. More health, a better physical appearance, whatever it is, more wealth in whatever form, more happiness in whatever form. That idea could only come to you because the idea exists as an idea in the universe. All ideas that exist as divine ideas that we can tap into, and that we can catch the idea in our own individual awareness or consciousness, and then shape that idea based on our individual desires. But the idea itself can never be depleted. And so when the idea comes, the idea says to you, oh, now it's time for an upgrade. It's time for an upload of something that you previously believed, right? So every year, I know, especially here at my organization and all of us, we look forward to increases. That's an upgraded idea, an upgraded awareness of what is possible. We have new dreams, we have bigger goals, and those goals are not only limited to material things, but those are ideas, just like the song says, there is more that I require of you. So it's requiring you to think a new thought, to feel a new feeling, to be able to speak some new words, some new actions or reactions. It says God is in constant operations as expressions of each one of us. And this is why we get constant updates naturally. This is why we're always, if we're following Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're always being pulled to self-actualization. Being pulled from this physical place where we're worrying about food and shelter and clothing, to this mental place where we're now thinking about emotions and feeling, to another place, and we keep being pulled higher. So at a certain level in our awareness, we can truly appreciate Matthew when it says, seek ye first the kingdom, because we understand that everything starts as an idea in the mind of God. When we have a bigger God concept, everything that exists is pressed out of an idea and shaped and molded by individual consciousness into a tree, a chair, or whatever it is that is molded into. But there's an idea, a divine idea that stands under everything that exists. And so we catch that idea, we mold it. It says this is how our cells grow and this is how our bodies change. And we develop in every physical area. We are also constantly being nudged to develop as spiritual beings, update our God concept. This is to come into awareness like Jesus did, that the Father and I are one. A lot of people are scared by that. Many people are scared to even think that the Father and I are one, like Jesus did. Although Jesus told us the things that I do, you must do too and greater. We're scared because we are just thinking of ourselves as worms of the dust, wretched and done, sinners, etc., 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 and not identifying with the truth or the positive of us. The Genesis 1:26 and 27, made in the image and after the likeness of God. We blind ourselves to that point because we remember much easier that we are wretches undone and sinners and worms of the dust. But again, we have to update our God concept. The real of us is God. If God is everywhere evenly present, and we say we believe that because we believe that God is omnipresent, right? Yes? If you say you believe that God is omnipresent, it means that this omnipresent God must also be in you because you're a part of everywhere evenly present. True? It's not a natural flow. So if this God is in you and a part of who you are, what is so bad when Jesus could have identified it and said the Father and I, which is the real of me, the spiritual part of me, are one? And Jesus wasn't limiting that to his physical appearance, because God is not human. God is spirit, like the Bible tells us, and who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So the real of you, the core of you, the essence of you is God. That's the I that we're talking about, the capital I, the same I am, is God. And so once we update our God concept to that, then the shocking news becomes not as shocking. Because some people think that you're blaspheming when you say that the Father and I are one. We are not saying that you are all that God is or I am all that God is. We could never be. None of us, no church, no religion, no anything could capture the full essence of who God is. It is unimaginable. We can, for our purposes of communicating, be able to share an idea, be able to call it something so that when we're talking, we're all talking the same language. But not everybody calls the idea of a supreme being God. As Christians, we call it God, but not everybody calls it that. Same concept, right? And so we have to be able to understand and recognize that this connection to something higher, to the real of us, to who we really and truly are as spiritual beings, is what determines the kind of experience that we have. We must be able to accept the idea that we are more than just this physical body. We must be able to download this idea and allow it to improve our capabilities and eliminate some of the life bugs that we experience. If you really and truly knew and believed that you are a child of God, made in the image and likeness of God, having access to all that God is, and there's nothing that's too big or too hard for God, what would you do differently? Would you be fretting about that diagnosis? Would you be worrying about the bill? Would you be worrying about what you eat or what you wear or what you whatever? Would you be doing that? So the fact that there is fear that creeps in is because our concept of God needs upgrading, needs updating. It's always a call to update your concept of God. Whenever there seems to be a lack in money substance, it's a call to update your concept of God. Whenever there seems to be sickness in your body, it's a call to update your concept of God. Wherever it seems to be disharmony in your relationships, it's a call to update your concept of God. What do I mean? It's a call to remember and recognize that God is bigger than all of this. And I hope that the God that you're talking is bigger than all of this. And so if you focus your attention on the bigger, the smaller things become irrelevant. And the smaller things work themselves out. That is why it says, seek ye first the kingdom. That is why it says, seek ye first the kingdom. Put your attention on your concept of something bigger than what you've been experiencing. And watch that idea, download that idea into your mind, and watch it move forward to create what needs to be created, to bring whatever needs to be brought to you, to draw to you whatever resources, whatever people, whatever it is that you need. It is important. If you have an archaic concept of God, if your God is a little tiny, whooshy somebody who is somewhere, who is judging you and writing down in a black book what you're doing and coming back to send you to heaven or hell sometime when you die, you may want to consider, does that work for me? And if it works for you, again, there's no blame or no judgment. But that concept stopped working for me a long time. My God is bigger than anything I can ever experience. And so when I become afraid, when I become overwhelmed, when I start to worry about how things will work out, I go back and remember, hey, Conroy, but you say you believe in a God that's big. Where is this God now? Because you said that this God is in you, a part of you, and intends for you to be happy, healthy, and prosperous. Where is this God now? God, show up as me, through me, in me. Because I know and I believe that you're bigger. You're bigger. You're bigger. You're bigger.
Oh, you're bigger.
You're bigger.
Oh, you're bigger.
You're bigger.
You're bigger.
You're bigger.
Grace makes you bigger.
You're bigger.
Oh, you're bigger. You're bigger.
Right, so I'm understanding that you probably never heard the words in that song. It's the song "You're Bigger," but I'm asking you to use the opportunity to think about and to do a self-evaluation of what your God concept is. And like I said, if things are working for you fine and life is wonderful and you're good, then leave it. But remember, this idea of God is so expansive that there's no destination in reaching there. And our concept will continually expand. The more we are open to who and what God is and can be in, through, and as us. But at least ensure that you're starting from the true beginning, which is that you're a child of God, made in the image and after the likeness of God, that you're blessed. And not just that that is true for you, but it's also true for every single individual on the face of this earth. And like our first statement of belief says, every individual deserves, because it is God's will, to live that happy, healthy, and prosperous life. We believe that, and we have no apologies for believing that. That was the promise. Jesus reaffirmed it when he told us that I've come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. Jesus didn't say I came that you might suffer or that you might go to hell and burn. I come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. I'm inviting you to update your God concept and experience this abundant life now. Not someday, by and by. Right here, right now, wherever you are in the world. It begins with a willingness to update, to upgrade. That's the first thing. And then become a seeker of truth, as we all are. Read, attend classes, discuss with like minds, and grow your concept. We're told in Proverbs 4 verse 7, and with all your acquiring, get an understanding. Because once you have the understanding, you can continually work that understanding, like our founder says. It works if you work it. And acquire everything that you could ever want or need, because it's available. Thank you all so much again for your love, for your support, and continue to support the Universal Center of Truth for Better Living and UFBL. And have a great rest of the day and a fantastic week. Blessings.